Mic lock.
Hey, boys and girls. You probably know that I have a new channel right here. It's how can I put it? The new channel it's a secondary channel, and we're being very serious with it. We're doing a lot of pretend and play stuff, and we're showcasing the imaginary friends, our companies, our stories. There's a playlist called Tales from the Vaults, which is more or less the book that we're doing. We're focusing on Andy Johnson, but there's also a podcast which we're doing towards the end of the week. I've sort of put one on my other channel, just kind of giving a feel, but I really want people to come to this channel for the Tales from the Vaults, the day in the life of my imaginary friends, which will probably be, the book's going to have a different name. But I also do want to write another book on my autism story, which a lot of people kind of ask. So, the Media Mogul will be where, is the random channel, but obviously the channel will change. This channel, it won't be like the other one. So if you want sort of the random stuff, the music appreciation, the, what I do in my pretend company, which will be on this channel. But I've kind of, if you want sort of a mixed bag of things, the other channel is the place to go, because I seriously don't know what to do with that channel yet. I don't know whether to take some of the videos down or whatever. But in this video, there's going to be more of a strict approach to it, because I want this channel to really go places, unfortunately. This channel is going to be, when people ask about the Imaginary Friends and the Imaginary Friends blog, this is the place to come. This is the place to be. And, we started off with Andy, and there'll be Charles, and there'll be Rosemary, and there'll be lots of other things. There's only one series that I'm going to bring to this channel, apart from the other two series, which is the what was I saying then? Yeah, the Tales from the Vaults and the Day in the Life of My Imaginary Friends, which is kind of a bit like the Imaginary Friends blog on Facebook, only in video form. And might do a slideshow, I don't know yet. I've not actually thought about it all, but Tales from the Vaults came from, I was in the pub with my parents, and there was a guy who literally sounded like Mr. Yateman out of Dad's Army. And if you can imagine a vulgar person, if you can imagine a Mr. Yateman with a potty mouth, basically, is how I can describe it. And when you go for a meal with your parents, and I just sat there trying to ignore it, and my stepdad was explaining to my mum that back in the old days, if people wanted to talk about explicit stuff, they'd go into the vaults. And the reason, there's a few explicit stories. Now, I've got to elaborate here. I don't mean explicit as in pornography, I know there might be a few teenagers might be sniggering in the comments there, but to be frankly honest, when I say explicit, I mean guns, drugs, violence, all the rest of it. Now, for YouTube and Facebook, unfortunately, we have to censor the violence and stuff. But there is the podcast, the audio blog, where we can tell these stories. And so obviously, if you're into the explicit tales where we get to talk about drug names, I mean, we mentioned the word weed, marijuana in Andy's Leaving Home tale, but to be frankly honest, everyone's okay with marijuana, aren't they? It's a gateway drug, and most drugs, like, alcohol tends to be a borderline. It gets censored, because what about the children? We don't want children drinking alcohol, but when I was a kid growing up, in religious school, hey, what did Jesus drink? He drank wine. And that was never censored. That was never censored in the classroom. I remember me and my sister, we used to pretend that Ribena was wine and then later beer, but we realised that beer didn't actually taste like what we thought it was. I actually liked beer. It was a strange one. It tasted a bit like, I remember a friend of mine saying, oh, it tastes like, it was a friend of a friend, he said, oh, it tastes like medicine. You might not like it, and medicine tastes horrible. And I was like, I had a sip and I was like, It was weird because it was like medicine. It was all a bit weird, but then there was this, So then I had another sip and I thought, and to be honest, I'm like, I love it. And he was going, you don't like this, do you? So, but to be frankly honest, and I'm going to be frankly honest with you, right? Alcohol is a borderline, it's been shushed over in cartoons. They've used stuff like chocolate milk and, really, I mean, obviously if they use stuff like orange juice, I mean, I did hear stories of someone saying that vodka tastes like milk. Well, I don't know what vodka you've been drinking, but seriously. But to be honest, alcohol it's more or less a food substance, a resource of food. And if you do your science properly, sugar and yeast make alcohol. So there you go. And alcohol's used, it's a bit like vinegar, really. Alcohol's used not just to drink, but it's used in cleaning substances. I mean, if you drank raw alcohol, you'd be dead. It's just, and so, yeah, that's just lovely thought for the day. And obviously people get wine and blood mixed up in like mainstream culture, when they used to write the vampire stuff and then the history, yada, yada, yada. But anyway, there was other substances used, and I mean, drug culture sort of got its way into the early 90s books, because there was one book, I'm trying to think of the one where he has a toadstool and he gets really ill, but it's sort of like a real trippy situation. But yeah, I sort of like hippy dippy fairy tales because they usually have the mushrooms being the place where the elves live or whatever. But hey, you know? I mean, I'd love to know what Lewis Carroll was taking, because Alice in Wonderland is basically an LSD trip for kids from the get-go. I mean, everything changes. And yeah, who's not to say that Alice had something strange, whether she ate something strange, we'll never know. But I mean, people used to go mushroom picking and berry picking. I mean, there are magic berries, and goodness knows what they've got in. But anyway, and all these strange teas that people brew, and so yeah. And then there was the smoking culture, which again in Britain and in America, we copied the Americans, but I think the Americans were more. It was more cultural. For the Americans to smoke cigarettes. I mean, over here in England, we had the smoking age was, well, I believe they've upped it to 18 now, but when I was a kid, it was 16. And when I reached the age of 16, I never once touched a cigarette. Even though, strangely enough, I had asthma anyways at that time, but I remember people saying, Stephen, if you want to try a cigarette, you're well at the legal age. And I was like, no thanks. But I did try a cigarette when I was 21, and how can I describe it? It's like putting a hot 2p in your mouth. If you were literally to have a hot 2p, put it in your mouth. And that's literally what a cigarette tastes like. There isn't a rush. And I tried it twice. I thought, the rush's going to come. It's not. And it's strange, because what I've learnt about drugs now is the rush or the kick or whatever comes 5 or 6 seconds after. But yeah, and then another thing is gangsters, and gang culture and all the rest of it. Now, my imagination has been running quite wild recently, because a friend has been reading me a book that he's into, and it's got a lot of gang culture in, and we've been discussing gangs and serial killers and all the rest of it. So that's, it's the darker side to my imagination. So if you want to know what the dark side to my imagination is, check out Tales from the Vaults. I'm also going to answer a question in my next video. If you subscribe to this channel, I'll answer all your questions. Plus, have I ever heard my imaginary friends? Have I ever heard them? And can imaginary friends kill? That's the 2 questions I'm answering, and I'm also answering them in the book. So when the book's available on Wattpad, it'll be free, but when I do the printed version, I'm going to sell the printed version, and it's going to be an archive of stories, tales, all kinds of things, and also where I get the research for my imaginary friends, stuff like video games, soap operas, bits from the newspaper. When I'm in the pub, but I don't tend to the pub doesn't really tend to be the place where I'll research things. But I'll have conversations with my stepdad, and he's quite knowledgeable, and he'll tell me like places that used to be, what used to happen, you know, just stuff like that. And you sort of learn then. And if you listen to sort of people in the 60s and the 70s talk, and they'll tell you what their time was like, and it was a more better time, I think. I mean, when I was younger, I think it was much more of a better time. I think when I was in my teens and tweens, you know, yes, I've probably spoke of in my videos on my other channel about buying a single and a chocolate bar and a drink for £5. I think, hold on, for a tenner, this is what you could get. You could get a CD single, a chocolate bar, a drink, a magazine, and you could probably get 2 magazines. I can't remember. And I remember going into Liverpool, and I took £7 with me, and I bought a toy car, a wrestling magazine, and I think it was the Nickelback CD had come out, and the Papa Roach CD. I bought 2 CDs. I think because Mummy gave me some money, and I was going on a mobility like shopping trip, and we went to the top shops, and we went into Woolworths, and I saw this toy car, and the mobility teacher said to me, "Oh, Stephen, if you like that car, why don't you get it?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll get that car." It was a big toy car. I got this toy car. And then there was we went past the CD section. I had to get Papa Roach, and I had to get Nickelback. And I got the 2 singles. No, I got Nickelback later on. Was it the Spider-Man single I got? So yeah, I got that, and I was very amazed by my purchase. I remember I couldn't play the CD singles till I got home, but not only was that, like, kids actually properly interacted in the early days. I mean, okay, I didn't really have a fantastic social life, but you know, there was things like the soap operas, and the internet was like an electric version of the newspapers. You know, you'd go on the internet, you'd read all the really cool stuff. It's not like now where social media is a thing unto itself. I mean, I used to do cassette tapes for people and CDs for people. I remember there was a guy in college, and I had to do a compilation CD for him every week. But it ended up being like every month or something. But yeah, and but it's strange because I went to college and I got an allowance, and I'm trying to think what I did with some of that allowance. Well, my CD collection was built a bit more, and I think I bought an external hard drive too. Yeah, and that was when I left college, I think. Can't remember. Anyway, but also people like, you know, physical music. If you wanted to know what a person listened to, they would give you a CD of what they were listening to. And, you know, you would strike up a conversation, and you would sit down and you would talk for hours. I mean, it's strange now because people bump into me in town and we talk for hours. There's a friend of mine that we have now, actually, and we after the group, we have a ritual. We go to CEX every time, and we're always looking at the game collection, and I'm still looking for DSi games, but I really want a PSP. So anyway, I've talked for quite a while. I'm gonna go. Bye.
Mic trigger. Mic lock. Finish recording.